I am delighted to have the opportunity to speak about the Department of Education and Youth's Small School Action Research Project, and particularly the impact the project is having on the Donegal Cluster. The project was developed with education partners following an initial IPPN proposal that was supported by the CPSMA, that's the Catholic Primary School Management Association, and the INTO, the Irish National Teachers Organisation. The three organisations received invaluable supporting guidance from Professor Anne Looney, the Dean of Education at Dublin City University, as part of the programme of work of the Primary Education Forum. 6 clusters of small schools were formed under the project, 2 in Galway and 1 in each of Donegal, Kerry, Wicklow and Waterford, consisting of between 3 and 5 schools per cluster. The clusters are supported by part-time local coordinators sponsored by the education partners, working with a national coordinator from Oide, the Department of Education and Youth Support Service, under the guidance of a steering group. As the Donegal Cluster Coordinator, I hope what I share today demonstrates how the various initiatives undertaken to date can make a significant difference for teaching principals. But before I begin, I want to thank the 4 principals of the Donegal Cluster, Lorraine, Rachel, Coach and Diana, for their creativity, vision, tenacity and commitment to the project. Their openness and collaboration have been central to this success. When thinking about how to begin this input with you today, this phrase on the slide is the one that encapsulated everything. We had an online meeting recently where we began to discuss the organisation of an upcoming event, and Andrea, the cluster executive officer, pipes up and says, "And I look after that." One of the principals smiled and said, "There you go. That is what this role means in one small phrase. For once, there is someone looking after me and taking work from me without even having to be asked." The Department of Education and Youth launched the Small Schools Action Research Project in 2021, and the Donegal Cluster began towards the end of that year. We didn't know what was ahead. The project brief was to identify challenges that small schools face and to trial innovative solutions to answer these challenges. During the first phase of the project, one of the main objectives was to build trust and a collaborative culture in the cluster. These principals had not worked together before, and we felt that it was imperative that they got to know each other and build relationships which are fundamental for any effective team. They engaged in group coaching provided by Oide Coaching, and this was the genesis of something incredibly special, as it built openness and trust amongst the principals. Throughout phase 1, the 4 principals worked together, brought staff and children together with a real emphasis on pedagogy. The schools created shared learning experiences for the children, like common music lessons, culminating in a cluster concert for the combined school communities, as well as problem solving through chess lessons and competitions. These combined pedagogical activities gave children opportunities to get to know others in a different school and build friendships. These newly formed friendships proved pivotal for children transitioning to post-primary school. Time was scheduled for staff across the schools to collaborate and share practice, to engage in common professional learning experiences from Oide professional learning leaders, which enhanced their practice, thus impacting on learning, teaching and assessment practices in their school. This allowed for professional conversations and the sharing of perspectives that may not have been considered in their school contexts heretofore. When the project was extended to phase 2, there was a real desire to push boundaries and look at how the administrative load of the role of the principal could be addressed. With that in mind, we developed a proposal for an executive officer, 4 hours a week per school, 16 hours across the cluster, and this proposal was submitted to the Department of Education and Youth. We got approval for the proposal, and the journey of having an executive officer for the cluster began in February 2025 with the appointment of Andrea, our executive officer, in May 2025. The introduction of the EO role has brought considerable benefits across the cluster, most notably in relieving the principals of the administrative load. The four principals consistently note that the capacity to delegate tasks such as procurement, book schemes, health and safety audits, policy drafting, and preliminary liaisons with external agencies has freed them to prioritise learning and teaching as well as leadership in their respective schools. One strong theme which has emerged is the efficiency gained. Tasks that once absorbed valuable leadership and teaching time are now managed systematically with paper trails, bulk ordering, and digital systems, all reducing the duplication and cost. The principals feel they are benefiting from enhanced organisation and preparedness, as the executive officer coordinated the summer works and emergency works this past summer, as well as managed audits and compliance demands. They really value the fresh perspective of the EO, as not having an education background and having a different professional experience, they can identify streamlined approaches and solutions not immediately obvious to those immersed solely in education. This support has not only reduced workload, but also alleviated the mental strain of constantly researching and learning operational requirements outside of teaching expertise. For example, complying with procurement expectations. This is something that the EO has taken on and completes with efficiency. Everything we do in schools is for the betterment of the children in front of us. The feedback from across the cluster is that the impact the EO role is having on learning, teaching, and assessment practices is significant. The principals say the greatest benefit of having an executive officer lies in the time released back to pedagogy. With administrative tasks lifted from their shoulders, they can now concentrate more fully on classroom teaching, curriculum planning, assessment, and overall school development. This freeing up of time has allowed staff to revisit policies, reflect on practice, and engage in constructive professional dialogue about future priorities. This shift has brought renewed energy and focus, enabling meetings and collaborative sessions to become centred on pedagogy rather than paperwork and compliance. It has also led to improved resource management, with shared lists allowing access to sharing of resources from each other's schools without the duplication of purchases. The EO coordinates this movement of resources across the 4 schools in the cluster, allowing teachers to access a suite of resources that they would have not had before, thus widening the pedagogical approaches undertaken in the schools. Interruptions during lessons have reduced, with administrative issues redirected to the EO, giving the principals space to focus on children's needs. There is a stronger culture of professional reflection, improved inclusivity in teaching approaches, and greater progress in school improvement that has not been possible for years. For the 4 principals, having access to an EO is having a transformative impact on professional practice and well-being. A consistent message is the relief felt when substantial administrative burdens are lifted, freeing them to invest time in teaching, learning, and school development. This has resulted in stronger focus and increased morale across school teams, with an enhanced sense of professional satisfaction and validation. It has strengthened the ability to function as leaders of learning rather than administrators of systems, improving the culture of leadership and the capacity for schools to thrive. The introduction of the EO role has significantly impacted the personal impact of the principals. They speak of the relief of knowing that someone else is carrying responsibility for essential operational tasks. This sharing of workload has lightened the burden, reduced stress, and eased the pressure of trying to meet the competing demands of administration and teaching. Importantly, the role has helped to diminish the guilt often associated with unfinished tasks that teaching principals constantly feel, replacing it with a stronger sense of achievement and control. This renewed balance has reignited motivation and created a more sustainable model of leadership. They all note the personal benefits: improved time management, reduced stress, and in some cases, the ability to experience genuine work-life balance for the first time in years. Looking to the future, Diana, Lorraine, Rachel, and Coach express clear hopes that the EO role will be sustained and expanded as part of the legacy of the Small Schools project. A central aspiration is that the role becomes embedded with recognition at department level of the value it has already demonstrated in easing workload, strengthening organisation, and supporting teaching and learning, and thus the impact on children's learning. There is also desire for the role to develop further, with responsibilities that include compiling calendars of annual deadlines and coordinating recurring activities to streamline school planning. The hope is that the investments made so far will not be lost. The collective message is forward-looking: to retain, grow, and embed the EO role as an essential support for all small schools, ensuring sustainability and improved outcomes into the future. Across the cluster, there is optimism about the role's trajectory, with a clear sense that its full impact will emerge as principals continue to work together with Andrea over this school year. The professional skills that the EO brings, including management, analytical, and organisational strengths, alongside a willingness to adapt to the specific demands of school life, is proving invaluable to the cluster. Perhaps most significantly, the role has contributed to increased job satisfaction among the 4 principals, with one specifically referring to a reduced inclination to consider leaving the profession as the workload has become more manageable and there is more of an emphasis from their perspective on learning and teaching. The Programme for Government 2025 states that it will introduce a new national small schools project for all 1,300 small primary schools to protect these school communities and develop new administrative supports. This Department of Education and Youth Small Schools Research project, driven by the IPPN, CPSMA and the INTO, is the first tangible step in realising this.